Today, we're going to get right into a story that goes to the absolute core of the AI revolution. We're talking about a colossal hardware deal that could literally define the next decade of tech.
So imagine this, a $100 billion AI deal, one of the biggest tech partnerships ever planned. And then, poof, it's suddenly on hold? What in the world is going on here? We are, of course, talking about OpenAI and Nvidia, the two absolute titans powering the AI boom we're all living through.
Yeah, just let that number sink in for a second. $100 billion. This wasn't just some big purchase order, no. This was a plan to completely reshape the entire AI landscape as we know it.
All right, so let's get into it. An ambitious AI partnership. To really get why this pause is such a massive deal, you have to understand what the original plan was. So let's rewind the tape and see what this partnership was supposed to be. This quote from a tech report back in 2025 really nails it. A plan to power the next generation of AI models, far bigger than what we see today. So you see, the goal here wasn't just about keeping the lights on for today's AI. It was a huge, huge bet on the future. The idea was to build the infrastructure for AI models that would make today's tech look like a child's toy.
Okay, so what did that vision actually look like? Well, here are the nuts and bolts. We're talking about building these massive, next-gen AI data centers. Then, you got to fill them with millions of high-end GPUs. And to power the whole thing, they needed to secure around 10 gigawatts of power. Now, to put that into perspective for you, that's literally enough energy to power a small country. And all of it just for AI.
You know, on paper, this deal was just a perfect symbiotic relationship, a total win-win. Look at it this way. OpenAI gets guaranteed access to the one thing it needs to survive and grow, unbelievable amounts of compute power. And what does Nvidia get? Well, they lock in their single biggest, most important customer. That means a huge, stable river of cash to fund their future R&D. It made so much sense.
So, why the sudden pause, right? This is the big question. If the deal was so perfect for both sides, why did it just stop? What happened? And the timeline here really tells the story. In 2025, the news breaks about this $100 billion vision, and the entire tech world is just buzzing. But then, fast forward to early 2026, and suddenly the story completely flips. Reports start coming out from multiple sources saying the plan is stalled, maybe even being totally restructured.
Okay, and this is a really, really important point to understand. This was not a binding contract that someone just tore up. It was more like a grand vision, a strategic handshake between two giants, not a formally signed, sealed, and delivered deal. And that little detail, it changes everything.
So what's with the strategic caution from Nvidia's side? Well, a few things. First, you just can't tie up that much of your capital and future with a single company. I mean, that's business 101, right? Even if that company is OpenAI. Second, demand for their chips is going through the roof from everybody, not just OpenAI. And finally, let's be real, $100 billion is a mind-boggling amount of money. You have to be incredibly careful when managing that kind of risk. Now we're moving on to the industry-wide ripple effect, because this story isn't just about OpenAI and Nvidia. When a deal this big gets put on ice, it sends shockwaves through the entire AI ecosystem. So the real question is, what does this mean for everybody else?
And to really get the ripple effect, you have to wrap your head around this one central idea. AI compute is the new oil. And that's not just a catchy phrase. Seriously, think about it. It's a foundational resource. Our entire modern economy is becoming completely dependent on it. It takes gigantic infrastructure to produce, it gets tangled up in geopolitics, and whoever controls the supply, well, they have all the power.
So what's the fallout? First, you've got even more pressure on the supply chain, which was already stretched super thin with GPU shortages and power limits. Second, this creates a golden opportunity for competitors. We're talking about folks like AMD, but also this idea of custom silicon. That's where big players like Google or Amazon just decide to build their own chips. And third, this whole situation gives a ton more power to the big cloud providers, your Azure, your AWS, your Google Cloud, who already have huge stockpiles of these GPUs. So for OpenAI, this is a huge wake-up call. It basically forces them to come up with a plan B, right? They have to start diversifying their hardware. So what does that look like? Well, first they can start looking at chips from competitors like AMD. Step 2, maybe they double down on developing their own custom AI silicon to break free from depending on anyone. And step 3, they could lean even more heavily on their big cloud partner, Microsoft Azure.
All right, so what happens next? With this massive deal kind of hanging in the balance and the whole supply chain in flux,
What does the future of the AI hardware race even look like now?
Okay, so this is the new playing field. First off, the relationship between OpenAI and Nvidia isn't dead, not by a long shot. But that $100 billion number? Yeah, that's probably going to shrink. A lot. At the same time, the overall demand for AI hardware is just going to keep exploding. So for all the big players, diversifying their supply chain isn't a choice anymore, it's about survival. What this really shows is that the industry is growing up. It's shifting from this Wild West gold rush to a much more strategic, competitive game of chess.
And listen, if there's one core takeaway from all of this, it's this right here. The race is no longer just about who has the smartest AI model. Not anymore. The real war is being fought over the infrastructure. It's about who controls the chips, the data centers, the whole shebang.
And all of this leaves us with one final massive question. Who will control the future of AI? Is it going to be the model makers, the brilliant teams building the brains? Or is it going to be the infrastructure builders, the ones who own the metal? That right there is the new $100 billion question.